Welcome to Spiraling Soul, a podcast where we merge spirituality and psychology. Today, Emma, that's her, and I, Casey, are going to be talking about different dimensions and our theories on different dimensions and the different dimensions of consciousness. So, like 3D to 5D consciousness. Emma is going to start our episode out today, so I'm going to pass it along to her.
Yeah, so before we begin, I just want to say I was re-listening back to our episode 2 episodes ago, right after I got laid off. And I was like, I sound really sad in this episode. And I just wanted to update our audience and assure you all I'm doing actually really well. Like, I'm feeling so much better about it. I feel really positive lately. Like, I feel like this whole thing has opened a lot of doors for me. And we're going to talk about a lot about dimensions today. And I feel like that kind of relates because getting laid off is like propelled me into a completely new dimension, I feel like. So
I would also like to add that it kind of looks like we're in a different dimension now because our whole
oh, yeah.
backgrounds are different. I'm in my closet right now because I have family over and they have guests over, and the closet's the only place that I can record and not have outside noise. And Emma's in her living room.
Yeah, I'm just in here because I'm home alone and I'm chilling. So I feel like we have to begin this episode kind of with some research and going over a little bit about what dimensions are. And I want to just say, I'm not a scientist or a mathematician. I'm not an astrophysicist. I barely know the basics about the math and the science behind the theory of dimensions. So we're not going to get too much into that just because I don't want to explain anything the wrong way. There's definitely so many YouTube videos and stuff out there if you'd like to look it up. It's all really confusing, but I will do my best to explain just the basics about dimensions in a more scientific way. Okay, so we live in a 3D world. That means we have height, which is up and down, width, left and right, and depth, which is forward and backward to describe the location of objects. I feel like we probably learned a lot of this in like high school, geometry, middle school even. But it's good to have a refresher about just what all this means. And then the fourth dimension, which is kind of what I wanted to get into a little bit more of later. I'm even having trouble understanding it, and even a lot of actual scientists have trouble understanding it. Some people think the fourth dimension is so it's an extension of three-dimensional space, just like how 2D is like height and width but no depth. So the fourth dimension is like height, width, depth, and then another element to it. Some scientists say that this is a hypercube or a tesseract, which is like if you think like square, cube, and then tesseract. Other people think that the fourth dimension includes time, so like movement through time and like space-time. Again, I'm doing the bare minimum explanation here. This stuff is really hard to even interpret, so the best way I can explain this is, I can't remember, but years ago I saw a video, or maybe I even learned it in physics or something. But imagine you draw a stick figure on a piece of paper. And so this stick figure is two-dimensional because there's height, there's width, but there's no depth. This two-dimensional stick figure, imagine they're conscious being. They won't be able to see us because they can't perceive the third dimension. So when you think about the fourth dimension, just think about that and how we can only perceive what we can in our three-dimensional perception skills. And so this other element to it, it's hard to analyze, it's hard to study because we can't even physically perceive it. So just think of yourself as a little stick figure on a three-dimensional page, and the world around is fourth dimensional. Some people even think that we are actually in a 4D world, but only able to perceive the 3D. And there's actually string theories, is a theory that there's like 11 dimensions or something, but that just gets like really wild, and I can't even comprehend more than the fourth dimension, honestly. All that I'm trying to say with this is that science kind of proves that there are things in this universe that we can't perceive with our senses but still exist. And I mean, just think about this, when you get a weird feeling about a situation and then that situation turns out to be true. Is that something in the next this dimension we can't perceive consciously but are perceiving unconsciously? Things like intuition or picking up on vibes and stuff like that. It also kind of makes me think that there could be beings that exist in the fourth dimension that we can't see but they can see us, which is a whole other thing. This isn't really like scientific or anything, but it kind of relates. This feeling of like intuition or just sensing something is up but not knowing exactly what it is. I feel like that might just be like our way of kind of tapping into the fourth dimension but not even being able to figure out exactly what it is. I don't know what everyone believes about, psychics or people that can communicate with the other side, things like that. I do believe that there are some people that can pick up on things that a lot of people can't. And I think they might honestly be accessing some information from a dimension that we can't, like a lot of people can't perceive.
That kind of ties us into the different dimensions of consciousness. Like you're talking about intuition. Different dimensions of consciousness, they're not like actually a place. Like what Emma's saying are like, these are physical. Like they're more in the physical world. Different dimensions of consciousness are not physical. They're our state of consciousness, like how we kind of perceive the world and how we go about the world. And so for the third dimension, 3D consciousness, you'll hear a lot about this. Like if you listen to some tarot readers or like psychics or intuitive guides or readers on YouTube or TikTok, a lot of them will talk about ascending from the third dimension to the fifth dimension. And it's just like you're rising to a different state of consciousness. And as I explain this, there isn't a better state of consciousness. And you're not better just because you're living in the 5D. We'll get into why. We'll get into why once we hit the 5D. But let's start off on 3D consciousness. So, people that are living in the 3D, they are unconscious. They are kind of in survival mode where it's based in fear and it's based in lack. Like there's not enough resources in their mind. You have to be competitive for resources. And they base a lot of their value on their social status or how much money or material things that they have. That's how they feed their ego. That's what makes them feel quote unquote fulfilled.
Oh, I was just going to say, I don't really know much about like this consciousness part of it, but it's making me already think of like if you're kind of in your consciousness is more like in the 3D, then you're just kind of living in life, like only seeing kind of what's here. Like you're not. Is that what it's kind of getting at?
Yeah, you're living like very surface level. Like you believe in only the things that you can see in this world, only the things that are kind of measurable in this world. There's no desire to dig deeper as to why. Maybe, hi Olive. There's no, they don't try to dig deeper as to why things may be happening, and they don't really believe in things that they can't see. A lot of people that are living in the 3D are living almost in a victim mentality. And because they're living in a victim mentality, they tend to be the perpetrator as well. And they really believe that there are bad things and there are good things. And they are the victim of bad things. But also because they're the victim of bad things, they kind of don't go around with trust or compassion or love in the world. And so therefore, and because they're not digging deeper into their subconscious and why they're doing what they're doing and how maybe they played a part in quote unquote bad things happening to them, they end up being the perpetrator as well. They end up doing bad things to other people as well. And they see themselves as very separate from the people around them in the world around them. The next state that you can ascend in consciousness is 4D consciousness, the fourth dimension consciousness. And this is when you start questioning the world around you. You start believing that there is a deeper meaning to life, that you feel like there's some kind of purpose to your life and you want to find it and you're not sure quite what that is, but you start following like your passions. You want to live a healthier life because you're like, oh, I want to take care of myself. I want to feed myself good things and take care of my vessel because that will make my mind feel good. And your thoughts start to change. You realize that, oh, based on my thoughts, I can create my own reality. I can choose kind of what I want to believe. And so you start integrating those thoughts into your life. And because you start to make those changes, you start to see it in the 3D. You start to see it in your physical world around you, that when you are making these changes, quote unquote, good things are happening to you. You start to believe like kind of in the universe and that there are things working behind the scenes that we can't quite see. And you start to see life more as magical. I'm the creator of my own reality. And you start to feel more connected with the people around you, with the world around you, and you're starting to realize that we're all connected. And because of this, you are having more compassion and love for the people around you, even if they did something bad to you or if they've done a bad thing. Yet you just kind of see yourself more in them, so you're being more compassionate. And so once you keep living in the 4D and reaffirming these beliefs and seeing more proof and changing your life, you start to ascend to the 5D. And so you're living in fifth dimensional consciousness. In this consciousness, you feel like life is abundant. Your intuition that you were developing in the 4D is very strong. You really believe in it. You've cut off a lot of the things in your life that weren't serving you, and you're no longer seeing them as this is bad. That person was bad. This situation is bad. You're just seeing it for what it is. You're seeing it at an objective level where everyone is just on their own journey. It doesn't make them good or bad. They came here to this earth to learn certain lessons and to live in certain consciousness levels. And just because they don't want to ascend to this higher level, it doesn't make them a bad person. It's just you choose to not align with them anymore. So because you've been making all these changes and because you've kind of been pushing out the people that no longer align with you, your whole reality shifts. Those people that kind of are living in the 3D aren't in your reality as much. And so it feels like you're living a whole different life than what you were used to living, because you're not worried about lack. You're living in abundance. You realize that life is all about learning lessons and growing and having fun and having adventure. Like, that is the meaning of life. And you can create the life that you want. And you full-heartedly believe in this. You start living an authentic life that is true to you and that makes you feel good and that is aligned with your purpose and your passions. And it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, because you're living authentically. You know that you deserve to live a life of your dreams. And because you've seen so much evidence of believing your intuition and following it and trusting the universe, you do start to feel connected to something higher than yourself. You start to feel connected to, let's say, the universe, or even beings in different dimensions maybe, or angels. Like, you believe in something bigger than yourself. The last thing is, you don't really judge people because you do know that they are on their own journey. So, yeah, that's like the 5D consciousness. And it's not like once you ascend to 5D, you're always going to be living there. You can kind of flip back and forth between consciousness depending on what's going on in your life. So, like, when your life is going really good, you may be feeling all 5D and trusting everything. But let's say you get fired, like Emma, and then that kicks in your survival mode. And maybe you go back to thinking a little more in the 3D because your sense of security has been threatened. So, but you can teeter back and forth between all three of them. You can notice physically that people living in these different consciousness are moving and behaving a certain way. They talk a certain way. And they just live life differently. So that's what I have to say on the different levels of consciousness. So yeah, it could make sense that on the fourth dimension is where our intuition is. It's on a dimension that we can't see.
Yeah, this is my first time hearing about those dimensions. I'm just trying to understand how it relates to different dimensions, because I know it's like 3D, 4D, 5D, but I'm just not I guess I'm just not connecting it for some reason. Like, it just seems like more of stages of healing, or do you know what I don't know.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, because it's not physical. Honestly, I don't know why they call it a dimension. Maybe it's because, like, literally, it changes your reality, I guess. You start living in a different world. It's like you tap into a different timeline, a different dimension. Like,
Yeah.
I guess when I think of dimensions, I think of the actual, like, physical, or what
Mm-hmm.
we can't see. Well, maybe it's like 4D. We can't see stuff in the fourth dimension. So maybe its consciousness is its own dimension. Dimensions aren't always physical
Yeah.
or measurable.
Yeah, for sure. Man, it just gets so deep.
I know, dimensions get so, like,
Yeah.
so deep.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to
And
relate it to. Oh, sorry.
in aren't, like, parallel universes dimensions? Are those considered different dimensions? I'm gonna
I
look.
think.
I'm pretty sure they
I
are.
mean, I think so. When I brought up the topic of dimensions, I was just thinking of a lot of theories of like reality, our reality, other realities, like how all that works. So I think that could tie in with it. I was just
Yeah.
I'm just trying to maybe put in a more like psychological perspective. I'm just like really, since I grew up in the Christian church, I'm very hyper aware of like potential for spiritual abuse and stuff, and I've seen not all people that talk about this, but I've seen some people talk about ascension in a way that's like toxic, or like, you're getting a little too, or thinking that they're like further evolved than other people, which you prefaced and said that's not the case. But I just want to like make sure our listeners understand that we're not trying to say like you have to get to the 5D to be a worthy human.
It's whatever you're called to do is what's right for you.
Yeah, and this whole thing about the consciousness just feels like a healing journey. You start off, learning as a kid, you learn what's around you, you learn what your parents tell you, what your peers tell you, everything like that. And if you're surrounded by, certain negative ways of thinking about life, then a lot of us start off at this 3D point because we're like so deeply, I don't know
You've
how to
been,
put
like,
it.
conditioned in a state of fear and lack.
Yeah.
But not everyone was born that way. Like, not everyone was raised that way. I think the whole reason that I even believe in spirituality and all these different consciousness and stuff is because it's a coping mechanism that I found to be the most helpful in changing my perception of myself and the world. And so some people may not even need to ascend to the 5D,
Yeah.
You may
Some
just know,
people
like,
didn't grow up with trauma.
yeah, yeah. So it's just whatever
Yeah.
journey you're on, that's the right thing for you. And
Yeah.
no one's better than anyone else. We're
Yeah.
all just trying to live life and survive.
Yeah. I totally get what this all means though, because I like just thinking of my personal, like in my own life. So, to premise, earlier today I was going through a bunch of old stuff with my mom, and I found a ton of my old journals. I've been journaling since 2004, y'all. Like, I'm a journal queen. Um and I always had multiple different journals. Like, I had my normal journal, a travel journal, a song journal, an ideas journal. And I was kind of reading some of my old entries. The way I see life now is completely different to how I used to. I used to see things and I'm not even talking like in progression of like child, teen, adult. I'm talking more of like how much I'm truly self-aware and like focused on healing myself. Like back in the day, I was saw things so in just such like a like fear mindset. Like everything was coming from a place of like fear and lack and like not feeling fulfilled with anything. I kind of hit a point in my life that I'm like, I'm sick of always feeling like I'm in fight or flight or like stuck in this place. And so I started to become a bit more aware and was learning a lot about like spirituality and psychology, both of them. And I was definitely like gaining more understanding of life. And I feel like I can't really go back from that. Like I'm too self-aware now. I just feel like I'm reaching a point now of just like full acceptance of what life is. Like, okay, even though I allowed myself that time to be sad about getting laid off the other week, I'm like totally at peace now. I totally accepted it. I know things are going to work out. And I just have no doubt in myself. I mean, we all have doubt. We all have these feelings at certain points, but that's also part of getting to this place in life is understanding that we're human and we have conflicting emotions and we will feel doubt. We will feel negative feelings in quotations. So it is like you kind of shift to a different dimension because it's more of just like a new way of thinking about the world around you and yourself. And so everything feels a little different. Like I'm noticing glimmers more, which glimmers are just like winks from the universe or like a confirmation that you're on the right track.
Like you're living in a different reality.
It's really about perception.
Yeah, like you were talking about dimensions. So you started this whole episode talking about the physical dimensions. And when you told me that we were doing dimensions, I took it as alternate dimensions, parallel dimensions, which are also like alternate realities, parallel universes, parallel worlds, you know? That's how I took it.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
but
I did want to talk about that too.
okay,
Yeah.
cool. So we're all on the same page now.
Yeah.
All those things are like the same thing, and we'll just use words interchangeably.
Yeah. I don't know if this episode is making any sense.
Girl, we're just yapping. I love listening to people yap.
Yeah, maybe we'll just keep yapping, and then if we feel like something is just totally out of place with what we were talking about, we'll just remove it.
Yeah.
Okay, let me try and get into this state, which could actually relate to this. I'm just thinking back to a couple months ago. Me and my partner watched Interstellar, which I haven't seen it in forever. And then the next day we had a long conversation about different dimensions and the universe and stuff. And it was a really good conversation. And so I'm trying to tap into that past version of myself. And this is going to come up in a bit. But if you haven't seen Interstellar and you don't want to get spoiled, skip ahead. We'll make a time note of where to skip to. So this is for anyone who has seen Interstellar or doesn't mind being spoiled. So in the beginning, the main character's daughter had a ghost in her room that would knock books off the shelf and things like that. And fast forward to the very end of the movie, the main character, Matthew McConaughey's character, gets basically like thrown into a wormhole and ends up in this space of just like all these different, I don't know, dimensions, all these different places in space time. And he's brought to behind the bookshelf, like behind the books of his daughter's room. And he hasn't seen her in years, like many, many years. And so he's emotional and he's trying to like get her attention and is hitting the wall, and then the books start falling. And then he's able, through that, he realizes I'm communicating with her in the past, like years in the past right now. And so he ends up giving her a binary code that basically cracks the case and saves humanity through the dust in the room. He manipulates it. I saw that movie when I was like 16 or whenever it first came out, and it's just so fascinating to me thinking about the theory of like all time is happening all at once. So let's get into my theory. I think all time is happening all at once. I don't think we're in a linear timeline. I think that literally everything that has happened, that can happen, that will happen is all just is here right now. It also makes me think of like the ghost thing in Interstellar. I read this story once of this old woman who would complain to her children all the time that she kept seeing a ghost in her house. Kept seeing a ghost. This ghost kept messing with her and stuff like that. And then she passed away, and her children went to like go get all her stuff, divvy it out. And they saw the ghost, and the ghost was her, the mom. Like they saw their mom and realized the ghost that their mom had been seeing the whole time was her. And then it got me thinking, like, what if ghosts and haunted places are just energy that blips through time? And so a ghost isn't like something haunting, like, oh, it's been there for years and years. It's blipping, like you're getting a blip of the past or the future.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That is giving, if you've ever seen any of, have you seen any of Mike Flanagan's, shows?
Oh,
He's
yeah.
done
Hill House.
Haunting of Hill House, Bly Manor. This is a spoiler too. It's giving Bent Neck Lady.
Yes.
The Bent Neck Lady, yes.
I just got chills because that's one of my favorite moments in TV, like, ever. It blew my mind.
Dude, I love his style, like, his storytelling style. I could dissect that for days. Mm-hmm. Like, it does something, it scratches my brain in the best way.
Me too.
But, time isn't linear. Mm-hmm. You could be haunting yourself. That's so wild. And, like, memories can be stored in places as well, too. But going back to Interstellar, the only reason I understood that whole movie is because I watched it with my ex-boyfriend who had a physics degree. But yeah, I can see that I could see that time isn't linear and we can almost access the past or the future. And I really have felt this. If you can feel this if you like have an emotion, like if you're thinking about a past event that has happened and you can physically feel the emotion in your body and it feels like you are there. And since I've been in EMDR therapy, like it does something to your brain and it literally feels like you're in that moment all over again. And like my therapist, she's like, okay, what does the little you in that moment need to hear? What kind of comfort does she need to hear? And it's the present you is comforting the past you. And it can literally heal traumas. It can heal these limiting beliefs. And it's almost like, okay, that trauma, like, I don't even align with that anymore. I'm not even hurt by that anymore because you healed yourself. And I to take this to a next level, sometimes I feel like I'm communicating with my future self, and my future self is like comforting me now.
Yeah, you totally read my mind. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Um, basically, well, I've already like been on this theory for years, but recently I've been, I don't know why, but just remembering moments in my past when I was like a kid or a teen. And I had a lot of stuff going on when I was younger. Like, I really went through a lot at a young age. And I just remember moments where I'd feel so hopeless, but it always felt like someone or something was saying it's okay. And then I'd get like little images of my future. Like, for example, I wanted a partner one day, and I'd get glimpses into like what that would be like. Or even today, again, I mentioned I was reading some old journals today. I found a journal entry about something that I've been wanting to do since I was wrote that journal entry in 2015, and I'm doing that thing in a couple months. And but yeah, I just like think back to those times, and I'm where I'd feel just so hopeless, but still like there's a voice telling me to keep pushing through, and I'd get to a certain point one day. And now that I'm where I'm at now and I think back to these moments, I'm like, it's literally present me communicating with past me, like telepathically. Like I'm blipping in and being like, hey, it's okay. Keep going. And the future self thing too. Like, again, I don't mean to be a broken record, but I just got laid off and I'm trying to figure out my next steps. And so I've been trying to like talk to my future self and see like what advice she would give and like what steps to take. And it's like so crazy if it genuinely feels like the right answer comes to me in that moment. Like I've even seen some people say that you could, if you really don't know what to do, you make 2 cups of tea, put one in front of you and one like across the table, and pretend like you're sitting down with your future self to have a conversation.
Oh
And then
my
it kind of brings it more
goodness.
present. So, yeah,
That's
it's so
cool.
fascinating though. Like I genuinely think that you can communicate with all versions of yourself. And it's even somewhat scientifically proven, like what you were saying with the EMDR, and your cells store information from your past. They store things that you learned, store things that you perceived in your past. Like that's all encoded in your body, whether you're conscious of it or not. And so your past lives on within you until you consciously bring it forward. Like it's always there. Like you can always access that version of yourself.
But yeah, it's like we're tapping into different dimensions. We're like in. Matthew McConaughey go through a wormhole, or was it like a black hole? I think it was a black hole because we don't know what is on the other side or in a black hole.
Yeah. I don't know why, but I thought black holes and wormholes were the same thing.
I don't know. I'm gonna
Oh, a
Google it.
wormhole. Wait, I think a wormhole is like time travel to it, like
Oh.
moving to a different. They went through a wormhole to get to the universe or the galaxy that they ended up in. But then they dropped him and the robot into a black hole. Okay. Yeah, now I remember that.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't
I
know.
don't know. We don't know the
I don't know about all
science
that.
really behind it. But
we are not qualified to be talking about any of this. This is strictly what we've read online and our theories. Now we're getting into our theories.
yeah, like all of this is just strictly what we have experienced and what we think.
Okay, so are we done talking about the present, future, past?
I think I was just gonna say one more thing. Um, if anyone is interested in like trying to figure out what the hell we're even talking about, like if we sound crazy, there are some guided meditations out there that are really good. Like I'll try and link them, but there's this one I listened to of that was guiding me to like guide my future slash past or my present slash past self, like where I am right now and kind of all that came before me, and then jumping into a new dimension, kind of like it kind of guided me there. And it in my head I was visualizing that scene in Interstellar, and I was just picturing me in my room in one on like one side of the little, it's hard to explain. We'll post a picture, but it was basically just me visualizing going into this new reality.
Like a parallel reality.
Yes.
Parallel realities, it's or alternate realities, if you think about it, like you are shifting into different realities even though you don't even know it. Like every single choice you make is putting you on a new trajectory or staying on like kind of the same trajectory. So let's say Emma and I, there's a reality where we don't have a podcast. And so in that reality, we have, it splits into other ones and then other ones and other ones. And so they could all be happening at once, all these different realities. There's a reality where I'm dead, or, you know, there's all these possible realities that we could be living if we had made different choices. If you've seen Everything Anywhere All at Once, whatever that one is, that kind of talks about this. But yeah, there's like this thing called like reality shifting or timeline shifting or something like that. I think they have different names for the same thing, but yeah, you can do meditations and supposedly it will kind of push you into this new reality.
So like this is kind of also going in with the theory that there's infinite universes and basically like the multiverse, right? Like anything that can happen will happen. Like any reality is possible, basically. And I do believe this as well, like what you were saying about literally every split decision you make, even just the smallest, most minuscule decision can lead to a completely different thing. And so this also like really ties into manifesting because it's like every action you take, like every decision you make can lead you to the reality that you want if it's not in. So like for example, if you want to, I don't know, write a book or whatever, um that reality is possible. It's just this, you have to jump jump all the way over to that reality.
And like kind of take the actions to get there. I personally don't believe in the reality shifting where like you do a meditation and then all of a sudden you wake up and you're like president of the United States. Like I personally, I don't believe in that. Apparently people have had experiences like that. I personally can't really get behind it, but I've also never experienced it. So who knows?
Oh yeah, I don't really believe that either. When you said that, I was thinking of the people that shift to Hogwarts because if every single thing in the universe is real, like anything that can happen will happen, then they believe that the Harry Potter universe is real. And so they can meditate and shift into that reality. When I'm talking about this reality shifting thing, I'm not talking like that. I'm talking more like things that are, because it's all about belief, and I don't know. It's like you're not necessarily limited, but most of us don't believe that the Harry Potter universe is real. So I don't think we can shift there. I'm talking more like, and I was reading this in my book last night. So it's like you can kind of shift your reality in a way, but when you think about it, it sounds kind of abstract and it sounds kind of woo woo, but it's actually not. Like, I'm reading this book, Atomic Habits, and he explains this same concept in a scientific way. Like, every decision you make leads to something else. And something that I really liked that he mentioned in the book, this book, Atomic Habits, is all about habits. So this is involving habits. Like, for example, you want to write a book. What's up?
Nothing.
Oh, it seemed like you were about to laugh.
No, I'm just smiling. What got me, why I started smiling was because you said, I'm reading Atomic Habits, a book all about habits.
Yeah.
So they talk about habits. That's what made me smile.
I don't know.
Girl,
I don't know if
good.
I'm getting my point across in any way in this episode.
Wait, just try. Don't stop focusing so much on if it makes sense and just say it.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't make sense, I'll ask you questions.
Okay.
To make it make sense.
Yeah, so we were talking about reality shifting, and literally every possible reality and outcome is out there. So if you're trying to reach a certain point, and this is why it relates to manifesting, like if you're trying to reach a certain goal or reach a certain point, you can get there, but it's like you can't blip from where you are right now into something completely different just like that. That's just not the nature of how our existence works. So we have to, instead of jumping, like the book example, like if you want to write a book, you can't just jump from being here today and then having a finished book. Like we do live in like, even though time isn't linear, we still live on somewhat of a timeline. And the book Atomic Habits that I'm reading right now was talking about taking the tiniest steps towards your goal. And when I think of it in a dimensional way, it's like, just picture you're moving in this current dimension, and each like tiny step you take towards this goal is like hopping into from like one little thing to the next. Like you're getting to this other dimension. So like he talks a lot about like just the starting of the habit. Like if you want to write a book, but you can't just start writing it overnight, maybe like set a timer every day that says begin writing. You don't have to write, just set the timer. And then after a while of doing that, you set the timer, and then when it goes off, you write a sentence. And then repeat that until it becomes ingrained in you. So what I'm trying to say is baby steps to get to your manifestation.
Baby steps to get to your desired timeline.
Yeah.
Your desired alternate reality.
Yeah.
To whatever you want. So I was kind of talking about this with my coworker, Sierra. So, you know how we've talked about, like, channeling alien consciousness and stuff? I think that was last episode. Here's my theory on why we can channel alien consciousness. they're living in a different dimension than us. Like, let's say there's this dimension that they're on, like, this other planet, you know? And, well, I don't know if that's even dimensions, but maybe it is. Like, maybe they're living in a different dimension than us. And, like, we can access and channel things from different dimensions. And my theory is they access us and they go into our body and we can channel information from them. And the whole reason they're trying to send us messages is because they see us. They want to help us because they see us kind of like cute little animals who don't really know anything. And it's like more of an entertainment. So yeah, they like access the humans because they want to know more about humans. It's almost as if we're like, hey, I wish that I could channel inside my dog and figure out what my dog is thinking just because I think dogs are cute and I want to know what this different reality or dimension looks like.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I've definitely heard a theory like that aliens think that we're like they're so interested
Cute.
in us and they're just like, "Oh, why are they doing this?" And like they study
They're
us.
like, wow, they're so dumb. Like, look at
Yeah.
them being scared and living in fear and starting wars for no reason.
Yeah.
I think they're higher consciousness than us.
Yeah, that also reminded me of going back to Interstellar again. So again, you might have to skip. Um but they at the end when he's doing all that stuff in that dimension, he's like, who are these beings that created this spot? Who is this? Who's behind this? And it turns out the answer is the creators of that, like, I don't know, whatever dimension he was in that he could access all of time was created by future humans. And it just made me think, what if aliens and, like, you know, beings that we can't explain are just humans from the future of our timeline that, like, have figured out how to access different dimensions and stuff. It blows my mind.
Wow.
And then I
And
also,
it's kind of like we're a game. We're just a game to
yeah,
them. And they're like, I wonder if I send them this information, what they'll do with it.
yeah, yeah, it kind of makes me wonder. And then it also got me thinking of one of my other theories of how the universe works in general, um, which is kind of existential. So be ready for that. If you go far enough into space, use have you ever watched those videos where it's on a human and then it keeps zooming out and zooming out and zooming out and it goes like all the way like out of our galaxy, out of the Milky Way, stuff like that? And then you zoom back in and you zoom into a person and into their skin, into their cells, into the atoms. It looks like space. So it's the theory of like the universe is experiencing itself. Like the universe is
Like
in
if
us and outside.
we are the universe experiencing itself. And to add on to what you said, I think it's the more you zoom out, the more it looks like DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more you zoom into a human, you see DNA.
Yeah. And like the atoms or
And so,
electrons or the quarks, I don't know, like as far as we've been able to see, I think it's like the electrons and the quarks or something like that. I don't know. But it's like
I'll have to repost it on our TikTok.
yeah. But yeah, I just think that theory is so fascinating of like we are the universe. The universe is experiencing itself. Literally everything that could ever happen is happening right now. But there's no time. Like it's not happening right now because there's no actual time concept.
That's
It's wild.
wild.
And it kind of, I don't know, it's kind of crazy to think about, but I feel like all of this just honestly gives me a little, like, it is freaky, but it also kind of comforts me. Because when you think about it, it's like the positive nihilism, like nothing matters, but in a positive way. Like, literally, none of this is serious. Like, don't take anything seriously. Like, we're all literally just a blip. Think of that in a positive way because that means you can do anything, you can try anything. Don't be scared to do anything. Like it's really not serious.
Yeah. Except like if you're gonna kill someone, let's just
Oh,
not do that.
let's
Let's just not
please.
try that. In our reality, that's just not acceptable. Like people don't like that. And you have to live by some rules of the 3D world.
And also I feel like there is some kind of universal like morality that I don't even have a theory about, but I think there is just an aspect to it like it's important for us to have morals in our existence. So when I say you can do anything and it's not serious, I'm not talking crimes and all that stuff. Like, still try to live and be kind, be loving, all that stuff.
Peace and love. Okay. You have anything else to add about different dimensions?
Nope. Okay, we're gonna wrap things up. Let us know if you have any of your theories about the universe. You can find us on social media on TikTok or Instagram.
Or YouTube.
Or YouTube. I'd love to hear if anyone else had any cool theories. I love talking about theories of the universe. It's so fascinating to me. In the description, we will have some of the sources we used in books and things like that. Next episode is in 2 weeks. And thank you so much for listening. Hope you all have a great rest of your day.